for joining us for this special edition. We thought that while we're all waiting patiently for club football to return and questioning every move that Gareth Southgate makes, we'd get on the phone to ex-Leeds manager Simon Grayson. So during the Simon Grayson hour, we'll cover off his playing career, his management of Leeds, and we'll find out where he thinks the club are going to finish this season. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Simon. I think first up, let's have a chat about your time as a player. Leeds was obviously a key part of your career from the start, having gone through the youth squad. Was your focus really on cementing yourself in the senior team during your time at the club, or was it just a case of getting as much experience as you could?
First and foremost was when I joined at 14 was to try and make a living in the game, and ideally that would have been to play for Leeds and make many appearances. And the second part didn't happen too often, but it was just a great experience from signing as a 14-year-old on the same day Gary Speed signed as well, which was obviously grew into a great friendship, and so sad that he's no longer with us. So Eddie Gray signed me at 14, and then Billy Bremner took me on as apprentice, and it was fascinating days then, really, with being apprentice, that you were cleaning Billy's room and listening to the stories from the Revy days, and it was fascinating. And I was very fortunate that he gave me my debut at 17, so to get such an early taste of first team football was fantastic. But it wasn't for another few more years that I managed to try and make another couple of appearances, and it just didn't happen for me, you know what I mean, whether I was ready to play first team football or not. But it got to the stage when I got to 21 that I needed to go and make a career in the game. Hence went to Leicester, and obviously had a decent career after that playing. But I'd love to have played a lot more times for Leeds. Played with some great people, learnt a lot from Eddie Gray to start with, and Billy Bremner and Howard Wilkinson, to learning off Gordon Strachan, not just on the pitch but off it as well, how you conduct yourself, how you look after yourself, how you train. And the apprentice days, myself, Gary Speed, David Batty, and lads like that went on to have great careers. So look, it's fantastic to have been given that opportunity. Nobody can ever take away your debut for the team you supported. And said I would like to have played a lot more, but it just didn't happen, unfortunately.
Do you think, obviously moving to Leicester, you took all that experience and type of players and that you'd been in and around daily to Leicester with you? You know, obviously, and then you think you made about 229 appearances and went on to score the winning goal in the League Cup semi-final, we remember, and obviously ended up picking a winner's medal, which I think it went into a replay, didn't it, that year against Middlesbrough?
Well, I went to Leicester, and from suddenly playing in the reserves at Leeds to 11 games later, I'm playing in what is the equivalent of the Championship playoff final now, and against Blackburn, Kenny Dalglish's team, who'd spent a fortune on the players, and it was one of them occasions that it just passed me by, because you just the game, the emotions of everything. You were probably just in awe of it all, really, of this iconic stadium in Wembley. You're actually gracing it. And then the following couple of years, Leicester, we lost in the playoff final again. The following year, we won the playoff final against Derby to get to the Premier League, and I was fortunate that I was captain, so I became the first Leicester captain to ever win a trophy at Leicester. For Leicester, so that was really nice. Got relegated from the Premier League, and then the following year we got promoted again via the playoffs at Wembley. So it was like an unbelievable period of being a player and a supporter at that time. And then it came with our first year in the back, and then we got obviously in the Premier League again and finished 10th and won the League Cup, beating Brian Robson's Middlesbrough in a replay at Sheffield Wednesday's ground, Hillsborough. And they had the likes of Emerson, Juninho, Ravanelli, and we beat them in the replay. So it was a fantastic time at Leicester. I loved my time there playing. Wembley was like our second home. Winning promotions, losing playoff finals was just the norm, really.
Didn't you get the Fans Player of the Year that year as well?
Yeah, and I got it a couple of years before that as well. So I was quite honoured to have got 2 Player of the Year awards as well. And I had no intentions eventually of leaving there, because I loved it. I had business in Leicester as well. I had a wine bar, stroke bar, which was frequented a few times after celebration games by us all. And it was a great place to be at that time. Brian Little signed me in the first place, and then he went off to Aston Villa, and then Martin O'Neill came in, and obviously the the two top quality managers. So it was a great period in Leicester's history.
Your career then took you on to Blackburn and then a move to Blackpool. At what point were you then starting to think about your future and potentially making that move into managerial positions?
Probably like a lot of players, when they get to sort of your 30s, you're always thinking the end is nigh. You know what I mean? It's not far before you have to look about what you're going to go and do. And I started doing my badges while I was at Blackpool, and then eventually I took over for one game at the end of the season, caretaker, and got opportunity to still play but be the reserve team manager, which I was remembered one game I'd played at Bournemouth on the Tuesday night and got back home at something like 5 o'clock in the morning to then be out of the house again at 11 o'clock to take the reserves. So I certainly learned my trade the hard way, and then got offered the job at Blackpool, and I sort of fell into it as a manager, to be fair, because I was going to go off as an assistant manager to a friend of mine's, and I spoke to Colin Hendry, who was a manager at the time, and he said, look, you can go, but you need to speak to Carl Oyston, the owner. So I went off to see him, and he basically said, no, you can't go, which I was stunned by, because I was 35 and done well for Blackpool, played 100 games or so. And I said, why? And he said, well, I'm sacking Colin and you're taking over. So I sort of fell into it. That was about February time, maybe Christmas time, actually. And caretaker to the end of the season, and then took over, kept them up, and got the job full time. And in my first season, got promoted to the Championship.
Had you done your coaching badges as well then? Obviously, 35, I guess you knew your career was winding down as a player.
I was doing them. I was doing them sort of while I was still playing. I was learning by going into Blackburn on my days off as well. Some of the coaches, I would go and take some of their youth team players on a Wednesday. Ian Miller, who was obviously my first team coach at Leeds, and a lot of the other clubs that I've been at, was at Blackburn at the time, and ended up taking people like who was in the team now. Alex Bruce actually was in the youth team at that time. Jonathan Walters, Hoylett, who's now at Cardiff. So it's good experience, and put the hours in to learn my trade. And then it was basically that. When you get offered the job as a manager, it's going to be one of them. You're either going to sink or swim. You're going to enjoy it. You're not going to enjoy it. Because I never thought that I would be a manager at 35. I thought I'd do a natural progression and just see how it went. And made some ruthless decisions, letting players go with my teammates in the dressing room who were shared, maybe roomed with, actually, to be fair. But it's that ruthless streak that you have to have as a manager. It's either you sink or they sink.
After that success at Blackpool, obviously that's when Leeds kind of came knocking, and that transition over to Leeds wasn't particularly smooth, was it? What were your initial thoughts kind of when Leeds made that call to say that they were interested?
I remember it being the Sunday that Gary had just got sacked after the MK Dons game. I got the call to say that they would like to, would I be interested, which obviously before the conversation had actually finished, I was probably on the motorway across the Leeds. I was that sort of happy and wanted to do that. But on the Monday I was in at Blackpool, and it was just Carl Oyston didn't want me to go. Ultimately I had to resign. I put a letter in, and Ken Bates, to be fair to him, he just said, look, resign and we'll deal with any sort of problems that come with lawyers, etc. And so even when I came in at Christmas time, there was still probably another 4 or 5 months proceedings going on behind the scenes of compensation, etc., which eventually got resolved on the doorsteps of the EFL. But obviously I was there and managing at the time. It was just Blackpool were wanting a huge sum of money for me.
First game, I think you said it there, touched upon it earlier, it's at Christmas one. I think it was the 23rd of December against Leicester. Snodgrass got a late equaliser for you. So yeah. Bad Christmas present. That's probably is that probably the best Christmas present you've ever had, would you say?
I would say so. It was so ironic as well that you're against one of the teams that you played for large parts of your career. But it was just a surreal moment when I'm sort of walking down the tunnel to marching on together. He's coming over the loudspeaker, and the crowd are all singing it. And I had to pinch myself, because it was your thought process was that, wow, I'm following in the footsteps of some of the great managers, Howard Wilkinson, Don Revie, Billy Bremner, and Jimmy Armfield, and people like that. It was like, God, is this really happening to me? And then the game goes off, and it's like work mode then. And it was great to get a draw in the first game with Snodgrass scoring the equaliser against Leicester, who were top at the table at that moment. And then it was all about sort of making sure that we won a game very quickly.
And that you did. I think, if I remember rightly, I think you won your last 11 games, didn't you, of the season, getting into the playoffs and cementing a place in there. So you went in form. And I remember that season after Gary McAllister left, I think a lot of us thought just, have a kind of stable season and we'd go again the following year. But, you gathered that momentum and really charged us towards the playoffs.
Yeah, it was. Look, I don't think there was a great deal wrong with the squad or performance. It was probably a little bit of confidence, and I knew that if we could sort of add a couple of players, I think we brought Richard Naylor in very quickly and one or two others, and it was basically, if we can get some results early on, the playoffs were still achievable for us, and we'd managed to do that, going on that run, like you said, and playing Millwall in the semi-final was never going to be easy, given the rivalry between the two clubs. We lost 1-0 down there, and to be fair, I think if you lose a playoff semi-final and only 1-0, you give yourself, still think that you'll turn it around, especially going back to a full house at Elland Road under the lights. We were thinking we've definitely got a great opportunity, and to be fair to the lads, they had a right go, and we got the equal. We got the goal. Luciano, I think, scored. Jermaine had just missed a penalty before that, and we had the real wind behind us. And I remember one of their lads getting injured, and it just really knocked the wind out of our sails. It was just hard to pick it up again. And then Jimmy Abdou equalises, and before you know it, that's the playoffs done and dusted. And but we spoke after the game, and I always remember it. And I always say, when I've lost in playoffs as a manager in the past, that we'll use it as a motivation the following season, and obviously that's what we tried to do.
Oh yeah, definitely. I remember that playoff semi-final, draw, defeat, or we got knocked out in the end. But that atmosphere that night was, even now fans still talk about it as being unbelievable. And when Becchio scored that goal, my goodness me, I've heard some roars at Elland Road, but again, it's in my top three. That it was absolutely bouncing that night, and like you said, it was heartbreaking in the end, wasn't it, for us? But yeah, great memories really at the time.
Yeah, that, like I said, that injury just took the wind out of us really, and we just couldn't pick it up again. And I don't think it was a real bad injury for the lad. I think he was very clever, and he knew that they were really rocking, and he really sort of deflated us, and we just couldn't get going. But it said, one of the best atmospheres that had been at Elland Road, and we wanted more of it the following season.
I think as well, I remember because the East Stand Upper was closed, wasn't it? There was a lot made about that at the time, and I remember it being open for the game, and tickets went in an instant. I think that played a big part in it. That the fans came back for that, and it played a massive part, like we said. But yeah, good memories.
By the youngster Parker. Robinson takes over. Good ball, Becchio, well placed. Leeds United draw level on aggregate. Well, the roof has just been lifted off Elland Road. What an incredible noise we are witnessing here.
Obviously, you lost the playoff semi-final. You'd gone into the summer wanting to rebuild, go again, strengthen and get us out of League One. And then Beckford had rejected a new contract, hadn't he? And then there was the Fabian Delph interest as well from the Premier League clubs. Villa, the likes of City were after him. How did you find that at the time? Was it unsettling for the squad, or was it an opportunity for you to look at them two players and think, I can replace them and move on, or even take the Delph money and move on?
Well, I think it was inevitable from day one of me going in that Fab was going to move on, because he was such a talent, and when you're wanted by top Premier League clubs, it was going to be very difficult for us to keep hold of him as well. And he did what he needed to do, and obviously he's gone on and had a fantastic career. So I knew that we might get a little bit of money, and I could maybe jiggle the squad around. And as I said, I think we brought Richard Naylor in and one or two others. And it was just sort of Jermaine's turning down the contract. It wasn't too much of an issue, because we'd said that sort of we might as well keep Jermaine for the rest of that season, knowing that he could still get us promoted back to the Championship. And even in the January round about the time of the FA Cup tie, he was Newcastle was sniffing around. And fair play to Ken. He says, look, he could be the difference between us getting promoted or not. And we told this to Jermaine, and he accepted that. And we ran the risk of him leaving on a free, but he could obviously leave on a high for the football club being promoted, but ultimately as well for him could score the goals to get us promoted, and obviously that's how it panned out.
So let's talk about January 3rd, FA Cup third round game against Manchester United. I'm sure you'll get asked about it in every interview, but it must be a career highlight still.
Yeah, definitely. Look, we'd started the season really well. We were up to the top of the division with Norwich. We were winning games. We had a good mentality about us. We had a good group of players, and it was weird because I still think a lot of people don't realise that we might not even got to the Man United game, because we went to Kettering and we drew there, and it was sort of a real tough game for us. And then the draw got made, and it was Man United away, and obviously everybody was buzzing, and we had the replay to play still. And as much as everybody thought Kettering non-league, it's done and dusted, they took us to extra time, and it wasn't until later on that we got a couple of goals to go through, and then it was really just the build up to it. Everybody talking about the rivalry. The lads would walk around the city and they were reminded about the rivalry and what it meant to the supporters, and it was. We were playing against the Premier League champions at the time, and certainly Alex Ferguson wasn't wanting to get beat by a League One club, and certainly not Leeds United, one of the biggest rivals. So we went there, and I think all I said to the players was, let's make sure that we have no regrets when we come off. Look, if we're expected to lose, but within the dressing room, let's make sure that we believe that we can go and win there, because it hadn't been a shock all weekend. And I said, why can't we be the ones that go and cause the upset of the third round? And we went there, played with passion, desire, played some decent stuff, and obviously Jermaine scoring quite early gave us not something to hang on to, but it gave us even more belief that we could actually turn them over. And you look at their squad, like Neville and Rooney was playing, and Owen came on, and Giggs and Berbatov, Valencia. They had a strong team out, and it was. And even now, you still think back and thinking, did it really happen? But ultimately, as well, when the fourth official puts up his time, added time, you're still thinking this is Fergie time. We could still lose this game because he could have got 5, 6, 7 minutes. But then just to see it, the time dwindle down, and ultimately when he blew the whistle, it was a magnificent feeling to know that we'd beat the reigning champions, 9,000 Leeds fans in the corner, and a League One club had turned over one of their biggest rivals.
And I guess you knew you'd made history as well at the time, Simon. I think you look back on it now, and it's the first time Manchester United have been knocked out of the FA Cup third round. Leeds have not won at Old Trafford for 29 years until that day as well. And you kind of touched upon it earlier, but in the back of my mind, I always wanted to know pre-match, half-time, full-time, what you said to the lads, because there was that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure, was it 42 places between us and them at the time as well? And everyone was talking about the game, wasn't it? It was on ITV, prime time, Sunday lunchtime. Like you said, Manchester United packed full of first-team players. They didn't take it lightly.
I think I remember saying to him at half-time, just saying, look, you can imagine the lads were buzzing, and obviously still a little bit of shock that they were leading 1-0 at Old Trafford. But I said, look, let's just keep the game plan that we've worked on all week, and you've just carried out for the first 45 minutes, and that was to play from the shape of our team. And we played 4-4-2. We didn't go and play 4-5-1. We played 2 strikers up front and took the game to them, knowing with Luciano and Jermaine, we could get goal threats, and I think we had a narrow midfield four of Johnny Howson playing on the right, with Bradley on the left, Kilkenny and Doyle in the middle, and we had to be very solid. But I always look back at it, the game, and thinking we weren't being peppered by it. Kasper Ankergren hadn't had too many saves to make, and just said we've got to keep doing what we're doing. We might still get other chances, and I remember Snodgrass hitting the bar from a free kick, and probably, as I said earlier, the injury time was a long, long time, because you're just thinking something could still happen, and to hear that whistle go in the end was great relief, but also a very proud moment.
It's Howson. Forward towards Beckford, and the ball's over Brown, and this is Beckford. He just ran away from him, but he'll still get a strike in and goal, and score at the Stretford end for Leeds United, and it doesn't get any better than that for a Leeds centre forward. Jermaine Beckford gives Leeds the advantage at Old Trafford to the delight of their 9,000 travelling supporters. 19 minutes gone, and it's Simon Grayson going to spring the shock of the third round.
Should we talk about Bristol Rovers? Obviously, it's one of those games that's probably going to stick in a lot of people's memories for a long time. For me personally, I'll never forget the little lad that was sat in front of me going down onto the pitch at full time, and he came back up with a handful of the Elland Road turf, which is probably worth an absolute fortune these days. Talk us through the emotions of that day.
Well, we just knew, obviously, that we had to win the last game of the season. We'd blown it a little bit. We looked like we were going to slip up a month, 6 weeks before the end of the season. We went to Yeovil and we won there after losing to Swindon over Easter at home, and went to Yeovil. Richard Naylor scored twice and got us back on track a little bit. But I think if somebody had said at the start of the season, win your last game of the season at home against Bristol Rovers, who had nothing to play for, then we'd have taken that. 38,000 there. The place was ready to rock and celebrate. And we had a few issues to deal with. I brought Jermaine back into the team because he'd been out of form a little bit, but I felt that it was the right opportunity to come back into the team. And we had a couple of other injuries. And you're expecting us just to go there and do the business. And we did start the game well. And then right out the blue, Max loses his head. Look, he didn't do anything really untoward. It was a moment of madness, and obviously regrets it. And it ultimately could have cost us. But at half time, when you're 0-0 and you're down to 10 men, you're thinking, how's this going to go? And we had to think about it. The dressing room was a bit lively in terms of to keep everybody just focused, because Max was upset about the situation, but we couldn't be too worried about what Max had done. It was more about we had to concentrate on the next 45 minutes. We still had 45 minutes to play to achieve what we're capable of what we wanted to achieve. And so we had a plan A and a plan B and plan C if things were to go wrong, or how we needed to change the game. And then obviously so early into the second half, we go 1-0 down, and it makes it real tough, doesn't it? 10 men, 1-0, and made a couple of substitutions. Johnny came on, and then when he scored, the place just erupted. It was like we were playing with 13, 14 men, and Bristol Rovers really just sort of caved in. They were a nervous wreck with their players, from being lads that were playing quite well and comfortable to all of a sudden doing stupid things. And I always remember the goalkeeper being quite calm and sensible, threw one straight to Bradley, who drove into the box, and I don't know if it was a pass or a miss-hit shot, fell at Jermaine's feet, and I suppose the rest is history, isn't it?
I'll never forget that day. I think that was, fairly early on in me really understanding how much I loved football, and that was definitely a kind of defining moment in my relationship with Leeds United. So yeah.
Johnny Howson's goal that day, Simon, as well. It's not until you watch back the game and it's an absolute quality finish from Johnny, but it gets forgotten, doesn't it, for him?
Yeah, it does, because it's not the goal that ultimately won us promotion. Jermaine's goal gets talked about all the time, but without Johnny getting us back on side and bending it round, I think it was Luciano set him up, just a little layoff, and Johnny's great around the 18-yard box. He had a good technique, and if you'd wanted it to fall to anybody, it was probably going to be Johnny, because of his calmness, his coolness, and his execution of an art of hitting the target and bending it round somebody. And it was just great to see the ball hit the back of the net. Obviously, a Leeds lad. How it must have felt for him is only he will know, and only could he tell you. But it certainly then lifted the place, and it was. You talk about the atmosphere against Millwall. The place then was absolutely rocking, wasn't it?
So moving on to the 2010-2011 season, Leeds are back in the Championship, obviously after that incredible comeback, and you've strengthened the squad with the likes of Kasper Schmeichel, Billy Painter, Paul Connolly, to name a few, and you've personally extended your contract as well. You must have felt pretty confident going into that season.
Well, we, like any promoted team, you want to keep the momentum going. We had strengthened. I think I signed the wrong one. I should have signed Charlie Austin instead of Billy Painter. No disrespect to Billy. But them two were really handful at Swindon, and he was out of contract, Billy, and he was a good lad to work with. Just didn't work out for him really at Leeds. And we got a group together. Jermaine had moved on to Everton, but we kept the nucleus of a team we felt could still score lots of goals. Playing Luciano, Johnny, and Snodgrass, Max Gradle. We brought Sanchez Watt in again from Arsenal. We had plenty of goals in us, and we just wanted to embrace it, hit the ground running, and see where it took us. And we had a great start. We beat QPR at around about Christmas, the Saturday I think it was before Christmas, to go second in the division, and thinking we've got a great opportunity here.
You touched upon it there, Simon, about the players that were getting goals, and you literally got goals from all over the pitch on that season. I think the likes of Becchio, Gradle, Sommer and Alson, I think, got double figures. I think that's the first time since the 1990-91 season with the great Howard Wilkinson that we've had players getting double figures in so much that we did now. But what would you really put that success down to? Why were you getting these players scoring more goals? Because, traditionally, we've always had that kind of number 9 getting 20 odd a season, it may be, but you were getting them from all over the pitch, weren't you, in that season? So, I've always wanted to know, or we've always wanted to know, really, what really did you do to get that to work?
Well, I think ultimately we had good players. You only have to look at where some of these lads have gone on to, in terms of Snodgrass still playing in the Premier League now, yeah. Max played at highest level out in France, gone to Turkey now. Johnny played at the highest level. Very talented players. But I think also my philosophy and idea was that we wanted to take the game to whoever we were playing against, whether it was League One, Man United in the FA Cup, or teams in the Championship. Yeah, we wanted to probably be a little bit more secure at the back at times, but we had good players, and sometimes you want players to flourish, and I certainly feel there was a duty for myself to entertain the supporters, because that's all I wanted to see. They wanted to see players fighting for the shirt, for every tackle that was going in, people running, chasing and scoring goals. So we never, and it's been a philosophy that I've carried right the way through my career. Once a player gets into the opposition's stroke the top end of the pitch, then if he wants to try and do something, then I've got no qualms about that. It won't always happen. It won't always work out. But if I've got somebody trying to do a nutmeg on the edge of our 18-yard box and it doesn't work, then he might get the brunt of my sort of emotions, to be fair. But it was all about letting players express themselves and have a freedom to go and, score goals, create goals and entertain. And that's all we did, really. Worked hard in training on certain situations, but the encouragement really was the biggest thing for them.
And I think it's such a good season that year as well. Being promoted from League One, I remember we all went into that season, and I'm not sure what you and your coaching team and the players had an expectation of finishing, but we just came short in the end of the playoffs, didn't we? I think we finished 7th, and I guess you were looking forward to the next season, the 2011-12 season, with a lot of optimism, really, after what you'd built upon that season just gone.
Yeah, I think the season was a little bit of it was a disappointing one in the end, because I think we started the season like any promoted team. You want to make sure, first and foremost, you're still in that division come the end of the season. But that isn't good enough for Leeds United. You have to be at least top 10, pushing towards the playoffs if possible. And we got to Christmas, and I wanted another centre-back to help us, just to be a little bit more defensively secure. The people above felt that the squad was good enough, and we didn't have loads of money around at the time, and unfortunately we didn't get another centre half. And I think if we did, we'd have been at least in the playoffs, and then anything could have happened. Like I said, we were second at Christmas, and we've got a good group of players, and so it was tinged with a little bit of disappointment. And then that summer was a tough summer, really, because we just finished 7th, which a lot of people would think was a success, which of course it was, because Leeds have never got near 7th up until Bielsa came in for a long time. And but it was more sort of what was happening off the pitch. Players were not getting contracts that they wanted, or being offered terms that they wanted to stay. Kasper Schmeichel, who'd been with us a year, turned down a new opportunity of a contract, and Ken says, well, we're going to sell him because he only had a year left on his contract and didn't want him to leave on a free. And then Max had gone to St Etienne, and then there was rumours of other players. And it just felt a little bit of negativity within the football club for the first time in a long time. And then that sort of moved its way over throughout that first half of the season, where we'd done all right, but I think we'd missed an opportunity to build off the success that we'd done in that first year in the Championship. And I think that was a big regret or a big disappointment for everybody at that time.
Do you put it down to, obviously, that losing the players that we did at the time, contracts being run down right until the final year as well, obviously losing players, not replacing them with same quality, and then obviously the January transfer window, losing your captain, Johnny Howson, that must have been a massive blow for yourself and for the dressing room as well, because from the fans' point of view, I guess you felt it and you knew it. Not great when you have ambitions and you've had 2 great seasons, I would say, and then you're kicking on and really pushing for promotion, then you lose your captain. That feel at the time?
Yeah, look, as I said, the negativity towards the owner, to Ken Bates, was sort of coming in from the supporters, because right away from that January, players were leaving more than coming in, and we weren't replacing them with better ones. And every season you go on, you have to, and every window that you have to improve the squad. And that summer wasn't a great summer because players had gone. And then you felt the rumours were going round that contracts were not being accepted by players. And then Norwich came in for Johnny, and he was injured at the time. And the club decided to sell him, which I certainly know that Johnny didn't want to go, but he had to look after himself and his family, because he's obviously going to be earning a lot more money in the Premier League with Norwich. And that was just probably the final nail in the coffin, because I remember obviously a few games later, well, probably just a game later or so, then we lost to Birmingham and I lost my job off the back of it. So I think it was that accumulation from that summer where things just started to go a little bit downhill, rather than building on what was really sort of the platform of a lot of good players. If we'd kept Casper that summer, we kept Max that summer, and added 2 or 3 other top quality players, there was no reason why we couldn't have got into the playoffs. Not spending a fortune, but it was just as if people didn't have the money available to help us go that way.
How good was Johnny Howson for you? You know, you made him captain. Was it professional as he came across to the fans? You know, one of our own. You look at Calvin now as an example of how we're connected to him. And Johnny was the same back then. But for you, how good was Johnny Howson?
Johnny's one of the most truest professionals that I've ever worked with. He'd be trained like a demon every day. No trouble whatsoever. If anything, it could be a little bit too nice, but he's such a lovely lad. I think if anybody brought if any girl brought Johnny Howson home, you'd be going, right, he is son-in-law material without a shadow of doubt. You wouldn't have any problems with him whatsoever. So I think he was a joy to work with. I still keep in touch with him now, and great to see that he's had the career that he's had. He's like I am, that we'd just love to have been playing in the Premier League with the team that we supported and fulfilling that ambition, because you do see the similarities between him and Calvin, local lad, captain, doing everything, the connection with the supporters. It is there for everybody to see, and very fortunately that Calvin's been able to achieve his goal. And I think if Leeds had not gone up this summer, then I'm not sure he would have been there. Like Johnny, he wanted to fulfil his career, and as I said, fortunately Calvin has achieved that, and since then has gone on to be an England player. You
touched on kind of your sacking from the job and kind of the things that may have led to that ultimately. Do you think it was maybe this inability to build on the season beforehand and not be able to build on that success? And kind of what impact did that have on your relationship with Ken Bates?
Well, I think I had a decent relationship with him. It wasn't sort of best buddies in terms of me accepting everything that he did. But obviously, when it's somebody's football club and they sign the checks, you can't go shouting in public. You can't go and do this. You can't do that. You just think that you've still work to the best of your capabilities, and there's no way that was ever going to walk out on Leeds based on the inactivity in the transfer market, because it had brought my heart to have left Leeds. And I've said this many times, I had 2 opportunities to go to work in the Premier League when I was Leeds manager, but I wanted to fulfil my ambition of doing that with Leeds, and unfortunately that didn't come along. But you could just sense as sort of things were just tipping in the wrong direction. Supporters towards Ken, the players leaving, a couple of bad results. Obviously, Birmingham beat us 4-1 on the night I got sacked, but we're still only 3-4 points off the playoffs when I left, and we still were in a bad position. And I still felt that we could still get to the playoffs with a group of players that we had. But obviously, I wasn't given that opportunity, and Mr. Warnock came in instead.
Do you have any regrets around that last few kind of months at the club? Obviously, a lot of it was out of your control, but does it, to an extent, feel like there's a little bit of unfinished business there?
People ask me about, do I have any regrets in football, in life, or anything? Well, the only time you can have any regrets is when you don't do something. In terms of, I work extremely hard every day to try and do what I was paid to do. I would love to have taken the club to the Championship, to the Premier League, should I say. But sometimes you your future is in other people's hands, and whether that's getting rid of you, investing in the club, bringing new players in, etc. You can't turn somebody to do something that they don't want to do. So I don't have any regrets whatsoever. Would I change anything? Would I do anything different? Because I did everything for Leeds United in that period of time that I thought I could possibly do. So it was just a spell that Neil Warnock came available. Maybe Ken thought with his record that he might have a better opportunity to get the club promoted rather than me.
Have you had an opportunity to come back at any point, Simon? Has any of the current ownership we've had post-Bates been in touch with you?
Look, I spoke to Chilino. I'm not sure who he'd sacked. It might have been Ockaday, I think, and I was at Preston at the time, and he asked me to would I come back, and my heart was telling me to do it, but my head was certainly saying I'm not quite sure working with Mr. Chilino was going to be the right thing where I was at that particular time in my career. Preston were League One at the time, but I was settled there. I was working with good people, enjoying what I was doing. So as much as I would have walked back to the club at that particular time, it was just wasn't. It was such a volatile period of time, wasn't it? And ultimately, I think I was proved right, because under Mr. Chilino, there was 5 or 6 different managers in such a short space of time, and that's why I didn't take that job. And even when just before Paul Higginbottom got the job, I wasn't working, and there's rumours, and I spoke to Victor that they might be interested in me coming back. But Paul Higginbottom got the job instead. So it's been nice to have been offered the opportunity to go back once, nearly again, as I said, when Paul got the job. But yeah, it's just great to have that association with the football club still.
I don't think anyone regrets not working under Chilino, so you probably dodged a bullet there, Simon.
Yeah, you definitely dodged a bullet.
This season, we've partnered with The Terrace so that you can get a discount off all your Leeds United merch. Pick your items, pop them in your basket, and at the checkout, add the code RITGK15 to get 15% off your goods. That's RITGK15. Tag us on social and let us know what you've bought. So we've got a few quick fire questions for you now, just some really straightforward ones. First one is the best player you've coached at Leeds.
It's tough, this one, because even people ask you in general, and everybody's got different types of players. I could say the talented players like Snodgrass could do something out of nothing. Mats could do something out of nothing. Johnny was the ultimate professional, you know what I mean? Trained like a demon and scored important goals. You'd have Richard Naylor run through a brick wall for you. Kisnobo would do the same thing. Schmeichel gone on to be one of the best goalkeepers in the world. So, but I think I've got to probably say Jermaine, because of what he did for us at that particular time, from the goals he scored in League One to the Old Trafford goal to then securing promotion. And we have this relationship where I've signed him a few other times and he's scored goals for me. He's no saint, believe me. I've fallen out with him a few times at Leeds and at other clubs as well. But we've got this relationship. He knows what I want from him. I know what he's going to give me, and it's your man management skills, understanding players to make them tick properly. And that final game against Bristol Rovers, to give him the armband back, I just felt was another decision that he would thrive on and love the spotlight, and hence he stuck his chest out, was getting involved with Max, trying to get him off, scored the winning goal. So I think all round, I think Jermaine would be sort of the biggest influence that he's had on me as a manager at Leeds anyway.
What's the best signing you've had at Leeds, Simon?
Best signing?
Yeah.
Again, you can look at different positions. You look at Max was like 100 grand or something, and we sold him for 5 or 6, and he scored plenty of goals for us. Richard Naylor just led by example, didn't he? Between him and Kisnorbo, they were a right partnership. We've had them probably about 2 or 3 years younger than they were, because they were just both getting on a little bit and just picked up injuries. If that had been my first centre-back partnership for a long time, then I think we'd have been in the Premier League them seasons that we're talking about. So them two were up there. And you look at sort of people who did underrated jobs. Kilkenny was a fine player, even though I didn't sign him. Yeah. Michael Doyle did a great job for us that League One promotion year, and kicked many people in training on the pitch. So I think then ones would be sort of the out of signing of somebody like Max or Paddy or Richard Naylor really would be one out of them 3.
You took, did you take all 3 of them on loan? You took Max on loan, and I'm pretty sure you took Richard on loan as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I think we took them on loan to start with, and then signed them permanently. I think because the club we just wanted to see how they worked out, and if things were going well, then we could sign them permanently. So yeah, we did them without loan to a permanent deal.
You know, players that always fascinated me is that the likes of Mike Grella. Was Mike a player that you signed under your tenure? I think he might have been, actually.
Yeah, him and David Sommer. We had connections with people in America, and they came over on trial, and we thought, these boys have got something about them. Loved the game, work ethic was great, could score a goal. David obviously did his cruciate, which didn't help him, but Mike had a knack of coming off the bench at times and getting goals, as David did as well. And the one thing that they probably both couldn't do was get regular game time because of other players that were in front of them. You know what I mean? Even the first year in the Championship, it might have been the second year, we signed McCormack. Well, Ross didn't really get into the team to start with early on, because we were playing Johnny as a number 10 off Luciano, and we had Max and Snodgrass, and obviously Ross went on to have a fantastic career at Leeds, and I think we signed him for 300-400 grand and sold him for 12. So that wasn't a bad bit of business, was it?
No, it was good. He was captain as well, and like you said, you got then club get £12 million. I think he ended up moving 2 or 3 times for that fee, didn't he? So yeah, good bit of business for Ross.
Yeah, it's scored plenty of goals. So yeah, there's different players, and as I said earlier, players that have been probably people forgot about or just under the radar. Like we brought Bradley Johnson back from Northampton. Where was he? Brighton, playing in League Two, and Bradley then went on to be a regular in the first team, and then gone on and had the career that he had as well. So yeah, it's always nice to see lads that've played underneath you, that have made real good careers in the game, and now some of them are coming back into the careers or finished, and they're going into their next phase of their life of being a coach. I'm texting Paddy Kisnorbo the other day. He's just got the Melbourne City job, so it's great that these lads are then going to go on and hopefully have a good coaching career as well.
Is Paddy still wearing the headband then as the manager?
He still thinks it's superstitious now, you know what I mean? Yeah. He used to get some stick about the lads because he said he wasn't superstitious, but he still wore it every day in training and every day in match day, didn't he?
I think about 15,000 Leeds fans used to wear it on a home game as well.
So moving on to the present day then, obviously Leeds are back in the top flight. We've shown great promise in our first 4 games. Do you expect that to continue, or are we still in this honeymoon period and we're all kind of getting a little bit carried away?
Well, I don't think you'll be getting carried away. I think it's just the norm that you go up a division and Leeds fans just expect sort of success. And why not? You've got to. Why go into a division and just think that survival is the main thing and an acceptable thing? Of course, the most important thing is that Leeds United stay in the Premier League and can build and get the money in to keep moving the club back, sort of moving forwards. But the way that Marcelo's played for the last 2 years, I'd never thought that he would change his philosophies, even going into the Premier League. And it wasn't a surprise to me how they took the game to Liverpool the first game of the season. I think it was a surprise at the number of chances that they created. But they're certainly never going to not press like they've done, play out from the back and play with the intensity that he's played for the last 2 seasons. And somebody said to me after the Fulham game, like the 4-3 game there as well, what do you think Marcelo will do now? And I thought he would just tweak it a little bit, not in terms of anything major, changing systems or not pressing from the front. I just think maybe he's just told 1 or 2 players to maybe take a step, two or 3 steps further back defensively, so there's not as many holes where there can be a little bit more caught in gaps and spaces and be punished, and go to Sheffield United, get a great clean sheet, win the game, and then go against Man City. And certainly after 20 minutes, you thought, God, this could be anything, because Man City were on fire, weren't they? But they've got a resilience about them, a spirit about them, and certainly deserve to get something out of the game, and might be disappointed not to have won it. So it's a great that sort of the start that they've had, and it's just such a shame that no supporters are allowed inside the ground to see any of this.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, isn't it? Realistically then, where do you think Leeds will finish this season from what you've seen so far in the opening 4 games?
Well, I said it before the start of the season, without actually watching any games, that I think they would finish top half anywhere. I just think that with the squad that they've got, I think with the recruitment, and I spoke to Victor over the last few weeks, and knowing what players they were going to be getting, that I was thinking, that they're not prepared just to stand still. They're not prepared just to see how it goes. They're going to bring in quality players. And Marcelo likes the nucleus of a squad that he's worked with. So the people like Liam and Stuart Dallas and Patrick Bamford and others have all, Calvin and many, many others, know exactly what the requirements are from all the work that they've done with him for the last 2 years. And others then we're going to just be coming to the team on a steady period. So I think top 10 would be something that everybody would accept, but ultimately I think it's very achievable as well.
Here's one for you, Simon. Would you rather play in a Marcelo Bielsa side, or would you rather manage against him?
God, the demands as a player, training like you'd have to do by the cards. It must have been hard work. Then again, I'm not quite sure I want to manage against him, because he might put me your team to the sword and really batter you. And it's never been easy managing any team against any Leeds United team, because I've got certain sections of the crowd singing to me, and then I'm managing the opposition. So that's never been easy. So I'll take the easy options. I'd rather be a player underneath him, because as a player I could run, I could do a lot of the things the players do now. But it depends. I'd have to be in my mid-20s rather than my late 30s to play for him, that's for sure.
A lot of managers, even those with established careers, have said that they've been watching Bielsa and have learned from him over the past couple of years. What's your take on how he goes about things and what he brings to the English game?
Well, a freshness. I think when you listen to what Guardiola and Pochettino, 2 very good coaches in world football, and they look up to him as their mentor, it speaks enough for it, doesn't it? And then everybody else, Klopp and all the other coaches, have looked at different ways of his ideas, his philosophies. He's just held in such high regard. And I forget the tactical side and what he does with his players every day at the training ground. He's such a humble person. When you see him posing for pictures in all the supermarkets, it's as if he's just a normal bloke just walking down the street who's got a real connection with the football club and the supporters. And he just loves living where he is, walking where he walks, and just takes everything in his stride. And he doesn't have limousine drivers taking him from big hotels in a city like other managers do in London, Manchester, and other parts of the country. He's just a great down-to-earth person, and a lot of people who are now at the training ground enjoy his company as well as what he does on the football pitch.
So just to wrap up, we've got a couple of questions from some fans on social media. Lauren asks, aside from the two obvious ones, so Man United and Bristol Rovers, what was your most memorable game managing Leeds United?
I think we touched on it. Was my first game against Leicester, when you're walking down the tunnel and it's just surreal that you're there as a supporter for many years and then there for 6 years as a player. To walk down and go the full circle was just a feeling that I can still remember now, and my family is so proud of it. And yeah, it was just a fantastic moment to be able to think that I've managed a club like Leeds United. In terms of the games wise, I think I remember being at when we were at Burnley, we were 2-0 down at Turf Moor. And I didn't really have to say too much in the dressing room because, as you know, that the dressing rooms are below where the away fans are. And Leeds fans, as they do, nearly came through the roof because you could hear all the noise that was singing and everything like that. And I said, look, we don't just go and do it for them. Go out and have a right good go because they will back you. Anyway, we won 3-2, didn't we? Johnny scored twice, I think. I don't think he got a hat-trick. I think he scored twice and we won 3-2. So that was a good feeling when you can hear the supporters at half time, and then we're in the dressing room afterwards, and you can still hear them there about half an hour later singing and dancing around.
I was there that day, Simon. I think Snodgrass scored. I think was the last goal, the winning goal. I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah, it might have done actually. Yeah.
Came out a completely different team. It's brilliant.
Yeah, well, I threatened to open the doors and let a few of the supporters in. That's probably what it was.
They would have come in.
It shows you the power of the crowd, doesn't it? Which is something we're obviously missing at the minute, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is. And then I look at this as well, that the Leeds United faithful can certainly be a massive bonus for them. You know, we spoke about Bristol Rovers and Millwall as well, but also it's not easy as well at times being a Leeds player with the supporters, because I think the lockdown helped Leeds get promoted because there was no anxiety among the players, no nervousness, no tension amongst players because of nobody was inside Elland Road, were there? I remember the Barnsley game, absolutely got battered, didn't they, by Barnsley, but won 1-0. And I think if that had been with a full house, I think Barnsley would have beat Leeds that day, and it might have just derailed the sort of promotion push as well. So I certainly wouldn't swap Leeds fans for any others, but it can be demanding as well. There's no getting away from that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we've got another question from Dan on social media, and he wants to know, as your time as manager, was there any time or any point at the club where you looked at the squad after a game or during training and thought, we're close to Premier League, you know, we're not far from it, because the demand and the fans wanted it so badly, as you know. Did you ever get a sense of it while you were there, that we were close at any point?
Yeah, definitely. I think when we went second at Christmas and we'd beat QPR, Neil Warnock's team, and we had Becchio and Johnny playing as a 10 and Snod and Max on the left, and I think Killer and Bradley Johnson. I thought that we had a real good chance then. There was and the backing of the crowd at the time, that there was a real positive place. The connection between myself, the supporters, the city was buzzing again. That was that Christmas, January time, I thought was a real opportunity that we could get to where we wanted to get to. And unfortunately, that didn't pan out how we all wanted it to be.
Remember that QPR game well? I think Max got a brace.
Yeah.
Everyone was talking about him because I think Taarabt was the big name before. We all had to watch him and you nullified him. But I remember the game nearly got called off for the surrounding areas not being safe. So we all woke up that morning absolutely panicking because, you know, it was massive, the game. Like you said, QPR was up there. But yeah, like you said, we're absolutely outstanding. And I remember Elland Road being absolutely bouncing on that Saturday afternoon as well. Yeah,
so when you beat something, go to where you did in the division at the time, you're thinking, yeah, we've got a chance here, because we did have a talented group, and it's all right having a talented group, but you've got to also have a group that have got desire, spirit, hunger, and run through brick walls for you. And we had that as well. And so all the ingredients was there. We just had the final piece of the jigsaw wasn't quite there for us to help us along the way.
So what's next for you, Simon? Are you looking at your next managerial opportunity, or given the current circumstances, are you kind of enjoying the media sides a bit more at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm enjoying doing the media work that I do, but football's in my blood, coaching, playing. Since I was 16 and started as an apprentice. I've only probably had just over a year out of work, so it's been continuous all the time. Sometimes when you're in a job as a manager, because of the pressure and the stress that you have to go through, you're thinking, I could do with a bit of time out, and then you have a bit of time out, and then you go back to work again. So I'm waiting for an opportunity, whether it's at home or abroad. I sort of wouldn't mind working abroad, actually, sort of something different. But who knows? In this current climate, it's not easy for football, and there's certainly very difficult for football clubs now to sack managers because of payoffs and very little revenue at football clubs. But hopefully somewhere down the line the opportunity will come again, and I'm still 50. I've got 700 games nearly under my belt, 4 promotions, and I want to add to them 2 statistics if I can, and still be managing in, I don't know, 5-10 years later. Don't want to be doing it till I'm 65, 70 because I want a bit of a rest, to be fair.
Play some golf.
Yeah, well, I've managed to do that in lockdown. I do a lot of cycling at the moment as well. So I'm watching my son play. He's sort of just come back from a long-term injury at Blackburn. So, I'm missing watching football, going out actually to games to try and be there in the flesh. It's not easy to get tickets now, as you can imagine. But, yeah, I'm ready. I'm refreshed. It's just waiting for an opportunity now.
Well, that's everything from us. Thank you so much for joining us, Simon. It's always a pleasure to hear from someone that loves the club as a fan as much as we do. So, yeah, absolute joy to speak to you. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks very much.
So that brings us to the end of the Simon Grayson Hour. Keep an eye on the socials at RITGK to see who'll be joining us over the next few weeks. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back with the regular pod in a couple of weeks.